Hey, Katie, good afternoon.
Hello, how you doing?
I'm good. Oh, I'm so excited to interview you because I think you are doing stuff that is so relevant for so many of the moms that I talk to. So, everyone, today we are here and I am talking to Katie Barron. And Katie specializes in, correct me if I don't have it right, right? Moms who are overwhelmed.
Yes,
All right.
yeah,
Can you tell me a little
definitely.
bit
That's good.
more about you, what you do? How did you get here?
Oh, what my story? Um, so I suppose I've got the t-shirt. I'd love to say that I've had this perfect, and I've aced being a mum whilst working and I've got it all sorted. But no, I have definitely got the t-shirt and the badge. And for me, I was kind of busy. I love the word busy because we use it so often and we do it, don't we? It's kind of like, hi, how are you? Oh, I'm busy. How are you? Oh, busy. And it's like this,
Because of you, I don't use that word consciously now. Because of what you said, I
yes,
was like, things are hectic, things are full. I've
full.
used different words.
But we wear it like this badge of honor. And I definitely was that person to the point every day felt like Groundhog Day, real kind of hamster wheel. And it really was getting to the point where I just realized I wasn't enjoying life. And that felt so, the guilt weigh really heavily with that because, it's kind of like on paper, everything looks fabulous. I have healthy children, I have a husband, I have a home, I have a job, keeping it all going. I even volunteer in the community. And everybody said, oh, you're so good. How do you do it all? And inside it was like, I don't know. And I don't know who I am anymore. And it did get to a real break point with me. And I remember kind of driving into a kind of pull over in my car on the way back from work thinking, I can't go home. I don't want to be at work. I don't want to be at home because I have nothing left to give anybody.
I
And kind
get
of
goosebumps from that. Yeah.
it was just that feeling of almost feeling nothing. It was even past the guilt bit. And I kind of typicalized those days were my fluffy orange cardigan, nursing a bottle of white wine days. Not days, nighttime. I get to white before. It wasn't quite that bad yet.
That would have been the
But it
next
was
step. That would have been the next.
that would be the next step. Yeah, it was kind of slippery slope. And I was something happened, and these kind of break points happen in people's lives. It's kind of that wake up call moment, and it could be for anybody. So I work with clients. It could be a messy divorce. It could be the loss of a job. It could be a health issue. And at that point, it's that break point of kind of like, actually, life needs to change. And for me, that break point happened, but it unleashed my inner geek. I just needed to understand what was going on and why I felt the way I did when on paper and everything I thought I'd always wanted was happening. So it's kind of like, well, why do I feel so unhappy about it? So that was my kind of geek unleashing and my journey into neuroscience and really understanding how our brains work, how they're wired for our survival, not our happiness, and why actually so many of our habits and thoughts are driven by childhood experiences and our belief systems kind of embedded in childhood. And we kind of just rock on with this and kind of go forth in life as we do. So for me, it was just that real kind of awakening moment, learning. I started actually opening up to friends then. I felt a bit more comfortable because I could do that in the couch of, did you know this is how your brain works? And I felt like that too. And friends started saying, yeah, me too. Yeah, I feel like that. And talking about the mum guilt and talking about feeling frazzled and exhausted all the time and not really enjoying life to the other extreme of anxiety and barely being able to eat and not sleeping. And it was just that awakening of this is going on for so many people. And I see clients all the time and they go, and I feel really bad because it's me. It's just me. I'm like, it's not just you. There are so many other women experiencing what you're experiencing. You are not alone. And that really started my quest of training. So I'm trained in various kind of different therapies and coaching because it's about really unpicking what's happened in the past. Sometimes that's about really unpicking what's happened in childhood because that's kind of informs the way that you relate to people. So if you're a people pleaser, for example, that's really kind of embedded in that need to be needed. And almost the parenting, as kind of the parenting you experienced as a child sets you up for the way that you parent, but also it sets you up for all of those main relationships.
Yeah.
And until you start to understand that and reflect on it, you kind of can't move forwards. So yeah, that was my kind of journey into then learning how I can help and support others to just get to the point where it's like to be able to ride the waves of their life and to actually start to really love and enjoy and find themselves again. Because I've heard before as well, it's kind of like I look in the mirror and I don't even recognize myself.
Oh, I love that, Katie. I love the neuroscience nerd part of you too, because that's also very much what I totally nerd out. My bookshelf, I'm having a hard time because I'm packing up everything to go moving right now. And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, but my books.
My precious books.
But it's
like,
so interesting because indeed what you said about our brains being wired for survival, not for our happiness, like so much indeed of also how our kids act, but also how we act are tied back to, are we part of the group? Are we safe?
tribe. Yeah.
Exactly. But also if you're talking about, like food behaviors with kids, right? Like how we eat sometimes is like totally governed by like our primordial like brain from the caveman days when fat, sugar and salt was scarce, and now our kids can't control themselves and then we blame them, but it really has nothing to do with that.
No.
Right. But also
Yeah.
some of the other things that you touched on, like losing that enjoyment, losing that sense of self, that is just so important. And I hear that also so much that I'm just, oh man, I thought parenting would be different. Like, why am I not enjoying right now?
Yes.
Right. The change in expectations, also our own
Yeah.
self expectation. You mentioned a couple times mom guilt, we're kings of mom guilt. But just that finding that love, that energy and that joy. I love how we're so aligned to that. So exciting. And awareness, right? I start from the same place. If you're not aware of what's going on, if you're not aware of your behaviors or where it's coming from, like, how do you start doing something about something you don't even know exists?
No, absolutely. And so many people, we just rock on through our lives doing what we do, either kind of, Netflix binging or, second bottle of white wine gone, or snapping at our kids and like, oh, why have I just done that again?
Yeah.
And not realizing what's triggering that and what is kind of at the root cause of that and why you're not feeling 100% at that moment.
Yeah. I love it. The root causes, right? And that starting the awareness, indeed, because once you become aware, that allows you and it creates the space. I used this example the other day also. I was using, I learned a new language. And once you get to a certain level in a new language, the horrible thing is you can hear your own mistakes, right? So it's the same thing in parenting when the words come out of your mouth and you're like, oh, crap, I knew I wasn't exactly that, right? But it's about creating that awareness because it gives us the chance to then be able to correct and be able to do things differently. And not that happens from one day to the next, but it starts, the ball rolling in the right direction.
Yeah, totally. And it's that modeling then. I know so many women I work with, particularly if they're experiencing kind of really extreme anxiety, they don't want to affect their kids. They don't want it passing on to their kids. So it's really important, that awareness of actually putting themselves first, which is something that they're just not used to, and being able to have time out, but also being able to reflect on what they've been through, to go, do you know what, and have that conversation if their children's older, to go, do you know, that wasn't the best that I've just done. And I'm sorry, but I understand. Oh, and if it's appropriate, to say why they've reacted in that way and modeling that. And it's about putting themselves first and reflecting on where they are, that enables them then to build those relationships.
Oh, I love that. That's also so aligned with the way that I work as well, because it's not about being the perfect parent, but it's about being able to recognize, hey, when we have messed up, and make the invested effort in repairing the relationship, right? You talk about rupture and repair, and going in there and be like, look, I messed up and this is where it's coming from, and then going from there forward, right? Instead of always dwelling in or only keeping it to ourselves. And of course, our kids don't know if we don't say it, if we don't say we're sorry and we don't know, they don't know either.
No,
They just, it's the same as if you've had a fight with a friend and maybe you feel terrible, but your friend has no idea that you feel terrible because you never say anything about it. Right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So if you're thinking about, I've heard you mention a bunch of different things, right? Like with the overwhelm and the stress and oh, do I have you there still? Yeah. And anxiety, anxiety, right? So the stress, the overwhelm, anxiety.
Mm.
What do moms typically come to you for help with? They're like, Katie, help.
It usually comes when they've kind of reached a point. So, we're all rubbish, aren't we, at kind of like looking after ourselves and kind of just noticing, we push it to a point of kind of, it feels like I can't go on anymore, I can't. So, I mean, it's a range, but I usually call it almost like the watershed moment. So one lady in particular messaged because anxiety had just built so much that she could function at work but she was getting home and she was so exhausted, and she talks about having a mask that actually she said, I am worthy of an Oscar because I can hold it together in the day and pretend that I've got it all together, and I get home and I can barely be around my kids, or I can manage just to hold it together a bit, and I put them into bed and I just have to get into bed because I'm exhausted. But she got to the point, she said, I feel like the mask is now slipping. So I can't even do my Oscar-worthy acting anymore because the anxiety levels had got so much. And another lady came to me, she's going through a really messy divorce. And again, it's just that emotional leaking. I'm a big advocate for emotions and feeling our emotions. But the thing is, we don't allow them to come through and express them. So many of us keep them, bubble them, and self-soothe through Netflix and Jaffa cakes and white wine and, kind of keeping busy. Keeping busy is that self-soothing and not feeling our emotions. But women often come to me at that point where they can't really cope particularly well anymore. I feel like they're kind of at that extreme. And I want that to expand. I want to actually really build this awareness of actually we should be looking after ourselves way before that point, and the stuff that you can do to put in point. So that's my nirvana. But for one-to-one, I know it's at that point where women are like, I'm losing control of this.
Yeah, so many different, I mean, everyone is so different, right? And I hear that from you that there's a whole scala of people, and that some people really get to that breaking point. I think the mask metaphor is beautiful because I see this as well. And I've started telling also my clients who are comparing themselves, for example, to other people who they say their life is all together and they've got the perfect life. Yeah. And also,
Comparisonitis.
yeah. And also exactly. The whole book was written on it, right? But just the comparing ourselves to other people and just reminding them we don't know what goes on behind closed doors. We
No.
see a glimpse of people's lives either on social media or in the schoolyard when you're picking up kids or having a little chat, and it may seem all well and good. And I was like, there is a lot of struggle going on. So I think that's a really beautiful metaphor, that mask, that I'm fine, right? You hear that a lot.
Oh, fine. Like, fine's as good as busy. I'm fine, really busy.
Dirty 4-letter words, right?
It's horrible. But it's really interesting because that's just made me think, actually, the women that that tend to come to me are those women that if anybody else knew in their kind of their sphere or their social network would definitely say, oh, really? But they've got it so together, or they're so efficient. They're actually those women who have really portray incredibly well. But they do that and they make sure everybody's okay and sort everybody else out. But actually inside, they're really struggling.
Yeah, so those are kind of those recurring themes, right? Like, so it's either getting, to that peak where, what, like, I just can't keep it up anymore, or going through what I heard you say, the one who's going through a messy divorce, going through a life change that can kind of trigger the awareness, like, that I'm really not okay. And I so recognize this because actually I had mine, which led me into the kind of coaching that I do in the middle of COVID, because I kept telling myself, oh, I'm at home with 2 kids, I'm pregnant, and I'm handling it. It's fine. And then one day,
so fine.
Yeah. And then it wasn't fine anymore. Right.
Yeah.
So it's like, and it's that again, it comes back to, again, the awareness of, where am I? And not only, I can imagine that you teach them to tune into themselves, really tune into yourself, and to recognize those little alarm bells that go off, or the words they say that trigger it, right? If you're talking neuroscience, I'd also just how we program ourselves.
And the body's reaction. It's kind of, we do this so much, and we're not listening to our bodies. We kind of, and I remember kind of when I reflect back, remember those kind of old science, almost, I think of those kind of old sciencey type TV series, and the brain in a jar. And that's how I used to feel. It's just like, yeah, okay, I'm at work, and my brain would just be functioning. Actually, no connection to my body. So completely ignoring that I was grinding my teeth, my shoulders hurt, or your stomach clenches if you get anxious, or your heartbeat raises. You know, your body's constantly, your body and your brain on this complete neural kind of circuitry and talking to each other all the time. And that's a really big, it's one of people's first indication, even before the emotions and the thoughts. It's that body's screaming at you. And that's, you know, when we get sick, your body's just going, you haven't listened. You haven't listened, so I'm gonna make you stop.
I'm laughing because we just talked about this before we started the recording. Exactly, I had exactly that. I felt it coming for days. Then my body was like, "You can't keep going like this. You can't keep going like this." And then said, "Okay, you're getting sick. See how you like that apples."
Totally. Yeah, and it's just, it is that tuning in, and that's kind of really what I focus on and helping. I'm just thinking, another thing I hear from a lot of women that I work for is like, "Is this it?" And sometimes that can be, is this it? I've got to live like this, acting all the time. Or it could be like, is this it? Oh, yeah, I thought I'd be happier. And it's, nobody needs to live like that. And actually, if we talked about it, it would normalize it so much more. That's what is, I kind of, you get those questions sometimes, don't you? I'm like, what really irritates you, or what upsets you? And I think that is what upsets me. It's almost like this myth and this lie that we have to be superwomen and doing it all, and we have to be a career mom whilst keeping a house, and everybody's well fed, and a nutritionally balanced meal, and exercise, and make sure we look pretty, and all of these things are these societal expectations. And it's not that you can't do everything you want to do, but it's almost like your needs within that aren't important. And that's what needs breaking. That's what needs to change.
Yeah, we really need to change the dialogue.
And people need to say, I'm not okay, or I'm not happy. And yes, on paper, my life might look brilliant, but something's not quite right here. So I'm going to look into that.
Yeah, nice. The breaking through really I see, like, finding myself kind of in between, or finding the balance in between, like, all the societal pressures that we experience, and that ideal, what you kind of described also for your nirvana, right? Like how maybe you do want that for yourself as well, but also like the fulfillment and the free time, and the maybe the time to go and get your nails done or your hair, or just relax for a few minutes, and not like me, have to warm up your cup of tea or coffee 3 times in the microwave before you just give it up, and then you find it there the next day, right? I love it. Hey, so if you were to give, women who are struggling with these things, right? Like having a mask, or being anxious, or trying to really kind of live up to that societal norm. If you were to give the ladies who are watching this, a tip or process that you give to your clients that you see gives them a boost, right? I know you can't go through a whole coaching track like here, that's not what this is for. But if you're like, hey, this one tip will really help them kind of take a step towards tuning in, creating that awareness, and moving in the right direction, what would that be?
It's interesting because I was doing a stress strategies workshop yesterday, and one of the ones that I think, it was one of those that kind of, you see people go, oh, okay. For me, and I teach all of my clients, is focus. And that's about bringing your focus. So whether it's you kind of in that moment where your brain has just gone and it feels like the washing machine and all the thoughts are running around, I call it like it's Alice in Wonderland. You've already gone down the rabbit hole, following the rabbit, and you've gone to the worst possible case scenario of what's going to, the zombie apocalypse is happening. Whereas actually all you've done is your child's not taking their PE kit to school on that day. But you're now the world's worst mum, and the world's going to come to an end, and it's our thought patterns, just kind of messy. And focus is about bringing your attention back here and now. So it covers a number of things, but focus is about that, however you want to do it, bringing your attention to your body and your breathing. Just breathe. None of us breathe properly. We kind of have this, we breathe from here, and all we have to do, and I know it feels really uncomfortable, but like babies breathe. If you see a baby breathing, its tummy swells up, rises and falls, and that's proper breathing. So to know your proper breathing, you just put your hands on your chest and your stomach, and you breathe, and your abdomen should swell, and your chest should rise, and then your chest falls, and your tummy contracts. And it's almost like two parts. You should feel your hands going, and you just need to breathe. You can do that. You can have something that's very tactile, like a gem or a pie. I had a lady who used to take a pine cone around with her everywhere, so that when she started to feel like her brain was going, you just bring it and feel it and smell it and touch it. So it's bringing that attention. But I think focus is key with everything. We try and do everything. And I talk about everybody's to-do list is like this Andrex, I don't know, the Andrex puppy advert, the Andrex toilet roll. There used to be an advert in Britain many years ago where this naughty little golden Labrador or puppy would take the toilet roll and run away with it.
Yeah. Okay. Now, yeah.
And that's like people's to-do lists. This massive, like an 8-year-old's Christmas list, just this massive to-do list. It's like focus. You only need 3 things on there. Yeah. Today, you only need to do 3 things.
So you've actually given us 2 tips now, right? Like,
actually, okay. I was about to go to number 3.
It. So give me. Come on.
I suppose for me, it's that focus, whether that's when your head's gone and you focus in on your body or on an object. The focus is to-do list not being massive. You only set 3 things in the day. That's all you need to do. Otherwise, you're setting yourself up for failure. You want to set yourself up for success. And the next one is giving yourself just 5 minutes, not even asking a lot, just 5 minutes where you have an activity that you focus on that activity. It could be meditation if that is your bag. And I do teach people how to do that and allow thoughts come and go, and that's okay. It could be crochet. It could be writing a presentation, but you allow yourself to focus, because our brains do not multitask. Multitasking is a myth. It's a big fat lie that we can multitask. All your brain does when you're multitasking is switch from one activity to another.
There's a really cool quote, which is, multitasking is the art of effing several things up at the same time.
Absolutely. If you're going to have a bad day and get nothing done, multitask. And it takes your brain, if you're doing something and you kind of sidelining, pings, tings and ding-a-lings being a really good example, it can take your brain 15 to 20 minutes to get back focused on what you were doing.
15 to 20 minutes?
Yeah. So just shut down the distractions, allow your brain to do that one thing at the time. So it's all focus. It might be 3 tips, but it's all focus related.
I got at least 4 points out of there, right? Like,
oh, okay.
because I'm writing, I write notes, nerd to nerd. I'm sure you do this too, right? Like the focus on the here and now, and then you gave us 2 within that, right? So both the focus on the breathing, but also something tactile. And I was like looking, I was like, like this the block or a book, right? That you can touch something, that you can really, the smell of the book, the feel
smell of a book. We are nerds.
I found an old book. I'm cleaning up everything. I found a book that I have from my parents. It's from 1950, and it smells like old book. It's like Kon-Tiki, The Adventures of Kon-Tiki. Like about the adventurers, but the smell of a book. So right, the breathing, the tactile, having a maximum of 3 things to do on your to-do list. Thank you. I'm now going to forever have a puppy with a toilet paper roll in my mind when I look at to-do list. Focus on something for 5 minutes, meaning just like pick an activity to do for 5 minutes.
Yeah.
But also you did a little myth busting with us about multitasking there.
Mm.
And so my fourth tip that I got out of that was to manage your environment and take away the distractions, because you actually reminded me that my phone has been sitting face up, and every once in a while it will light up with a notification.
Yeah.
It's on silent, but I noticed my attention is drawn to it, so I turned it over, right? Like so it's
Yeah.
not visual.
Yeah.
So that also, they're all focus related, but I took very like distinct different points out of this. So fantastic. Thank you for sharing your wisdom.
You're welcome.
Okay, so any last words of wisdom for all those hardworking, overwhelmed mothers out there?
I would the analogy I just use all the time is the oxygen mask one. You've probably heard it of, you're going on a flight, and you always get the voice over the tannoy in the event of, in the event of an emergency, or in the event of pressure changing within the cabin, your oxygen mask will drop down. Put your mask on first. And that's what I always say. You need to put your oxygen mask on first, because without it, you cannot look after those in your life. You are if you think of yourself like a high performance race car, those high performance race cars, it's amazing what our brains and bodies can do. We can do phenomenal things, but we can only do phenomenal things if we fuel and we have a pit crew, and we don't continue at 120 miles an hour for the rest of our lives.
Short bursts.
Short bursts with a pit crew and fueling.
I like it. Oxygen mask, and think of yourself as a high quality, spiffy looking race car that needs, high quality fuel, and that support network, your pit crew.
Yeah, definitely.
I love it. Katie, where can we find you? If ladies are like super inspired, you're like, oh, I'd like to see more of what Katie does, where can we find you?
Mostly on Facebook. So I'm Katie Barron 54321. Very original. But my group is called Busy Mums Thrive Tribe. I kind of like the busiest tongue in cheek of like, don't use the word, but hey, we all do. But that's the idea is kind of, that is the place where you feel if you are just surviving and kind of going through the motions, you want to be in that, because that's where we learn to thrive.
Yeah. And you also mentioned you have an ebook. Is this true?
I do, because I'm a geek. So what I've done is for me, it was kind of distilling, and I actually wrote it to somebody very, very close to me, trying to distill all of the kind of the key aspects about the neuroscience, but actually what that means. So it's all very well, all the kind of like the theory, but actually what that practically means and what you can do. So about kind of your behaviors, why you do what you do, your thoughts, why you think what you think. And I've condensed that into an ebook, and that ebook's available, and I kind of send with that. It's a 3-minute, I call it mental first aid, but it talks you through that breathing activity. So they're both available to download.
Excellent. I will put that with this interview when it goes out, because I'm sure there are some people who could really benefit from that. Did you see? I was like, breathing. Oh yes.
Breathe.
Like, yeah.
Just remember, and breathe.
And breathe.
Yeah. Yeah. And not in the wafty kaftan, just remember to breathe, man.
I love it. Oh, thank you so much for this interview. I've really learned a lot. It's been a lot of fun. And I'm looking forward to working with you again, because this is not our first time. This is not our first rodeo. I'm sure we will see each other again.
Yeah, we will.
All right.
Thank you.
Have a fantastic day. Bye.
You too. Bye.